What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Homeboat Workshop. Today we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to make some tin pants, or waxed canvas pants. Check it out, it's going to be fun. Do you commonly find yourself wearing jeans that look like this? The knees are worn out, probably torn into shreds. There's holes in the pockets, and they're just generally worn out. In my quest to find something a little bit more durable than a standard pair of denim pants, I came across what I'm sure you have seen before, and that is these standard brown heavy canvas work pants. These things in itself would be a lot more durable than a standard pair of denim jeans. While I was researching things, I discovered something I hadn't heard of before, and that is tin pants. Now, what in the world are tin pants? That is exactly the question I asked, so I had to look a little deeper. And basically, they are a pair of pants made from a material such as this, a heavy kind of a canvas, but it has been treated with a wax type coating that makes it a little bit more durable, as well as water and moisture proof. So this sounded like a fun project. I came across a video on YouTube by The Lone Woodsman where he did some extensive testing and trial and error to come up with his own recipe for tin pants, and that is what we're going to use for this video. So I want to say a big thank you to The Lone Woodsman for putting this material together and doing all the testing and sharing your findings with everyone. I'll put a link down below in the video description. You can check out his video where he was doing the testing and making his own pair. I am going to use this pair of pants to make the tin pants, as well as a pair of standard denim jeans, just to see if you can use a lighter material or if it actually has to be a material like this. This is definitely going to be an interesting project. It is something that I have never ever tried anything like this before. So let's jump right in and see if I can not blow myself up. So to make our concoction, the heart of it is going to be made from microcrystalline wax. I've seen this done with paraffin wax, beeswax, but in the findings of The Lone Woodsman, he found that microcrystalline wax was the best choice. That's what we're going to use. We are going to use some pure tung oil, some tung oil finish, and standard mineral spirits. Now, to mix everything together, I ordered up the finest purple polka dot crock pot that I could find. Not really, this was just the cheapest one that I could find that I thought would fit for this project. Now, you could also do this in a double boiler over a hot plate, but I didn't want to have to buy a double boiler as well as a hot plate, so this was the least expensive alternative that I believe will work for this. Come on, purple crock pot. And hey, a bonus, you can make a set of beanie weenies in here when you're done. The first thing I want to do is get the wax put in there to start melting while we get everything else ready to go. Aha! I'm going to start out with 32 ounces of microcrystalline wax. It doesn't go to 11. All right, little crock pot, heat up. And while our snazzy crock pot is heating up and that wax begins to melt, I'm going to get everything else prepared. Once the wax is melting, then I will add all these ingredients to the mix. In the video by The Lone Woodsman, he measured everything out by weight. I don't know if it makes any difference whether you use something like a measuring cup or if you weigh it out, but I'm gonna weigh it out. Shake well before using. Now, using the scale, I'll just weigh out the tung oil finish, as well as the mineral spirits. These cups are a little bit small, and for a couple of them I had to use some extras, but we got the job done. Here I have 16 ounces of mineral spirits, 4 ounces of pure tung oil, and 12 ounces of tung oil finish. Now, I am making a double batch of this, so in the crock pot I have 32 ounces of microcrystalline wax. It turns out this crock pot worked awesome for this project. It melted the wax with no problem. It really didn't take all that long either. Alright, so now this thing has come up to temperature. Our wax is completely liquid. And now I can begin adding some of the other ingredients, starting with the tung oil. Trying to do this a little bit slow, because as you pour the colder ingredients in there, it does start to gel up the wax. It's not really a big deal, just have to give it another minute or two to remelt. Now the tung oil finish. Ooh, and this thing's getting pretty full. Not sure how this is gonna work. Another thing, make sure you are doing this in a well-ventilated area. I don't recommend doing this inside your house. It does smell pretty strong. And for the mineral spirits, carefully. I think it's just gonna barely fit.
I can't tell you how strong this stuff smells. It really is strong. I'd much rather smell some barbecue beanie weenies.
So our concoction is almost ready. I'm gonna give it a few minutes for all of the ingredients to become well combined and also come back up to temperature. Meanwhile, I'm gonna go throw these pants in the dryer so that when we slop this concoction onto these pants, they're gonna be nice and dry and warm and everything's gonna absorb really well. All right, I got my pants right out of the dryer. It's time to make a mess of these things. Got some cardboard down on my tabletop so that we don't make a giant mess, or I guess at least to help minimize some of the giant mess. Grab our trusty brush and just start brushing this stuff on here, being very liberal with it. We want to get it into all of the seams, all of the folds, all of the little nooks and crannies. Get this thing well saturated with this wax mixture. Ready? Let's do this.
There's nothing at all scientific about this next step. It's just taking the brush and slopping this stuff on there. We are not worried about putting too much in one spot. We want to soak the fabric, make sure the wax gets down into everything. It's actually really fun and really messy too.
I'm gonna set these things aside and move on to the denim. After already doing one pair, I found it's easiest if you get the seams now before the whole thing is sopped up with hot, sticky wax.
I think I ended up applying maybe a little bit more of the mix to these denim jeans because it was a little bit harder to tell whether or not it was covered completely due to it being a lighter fabric.
All right, that takes care of this portion. I'm gonna let these sit for just a little bit to let that wax harden up. Meanwhile, I'm gonna take care of this. I think I'm gonna store this in a mason jar. It'll make it easy to reheat later on. Let's see how much of this I can spill.
I'll end up using this later on for touching up spots if I need it here and there. It's just gonna come in handy for kind of maintaining these pants.
Back to the pants. So after this wax is cooled off, you can really see it on there now, but you can also see that it's not very even. Now we're gonna go over this with a heat gun and try to even out some of this stuff.
Basically what we're doing in this step is re-melting the wax. I'm using the brush to go back and kind of smooth everything out, brush the excess into the fabric. This makes a really big difference and makes it a lot smoother. You can actually see the wax getting melted and soaking more and more into the fibers.
So I just finished up with the heat gun on this pair of jeans. Now I have both of these pairs of pants ready to go. Now the next step that the Lone Woodsman outlines is taking a Bondo scraper and scraping off excess material. But I don't feel I have really any excess on here right now. That may change once this dries a little bit more, but I think for the moment I am not going to follow that step that he outlines. Instead, I'm just gonna hang these up and let them dry. You want to be very careful when you hang these up. Treat these like rags that are soaked in boiled linseed oil. They may have the capacity to spontaneously combust, so please be careful. Don't just clump them up and leave them for a while. Dispose of all rags properly. Make sure you lay them out so that they can dry completely before you throw them away. These, I'm just gonna hang up off to the side, out of the way for a couple of weeks. We need to make sure these things completely cure. I'm gonna use the old sniff test when I believe they're cured. When I can't smell them, I'm gonna consider them cured and we'll pick up where we left off. So hang these up, find a safe place. We'll come back in probably a couple of weeks. All right. I just pulled these guys down. They have been sitting for 2 weeks. So far, I think they're doing pretty good. They have just a tiny bit of smell to them yet. This tells me maybe they need a little bit more time to cure, but I believe I want to move ahead and get the remaining wax on here processed so that I don't have any clumps. Really, overall, I probably don't need to do much of anything, but there are a few areas like in here around the belt loops and things where there is some excess wax. I'm just going to take the heat gun, remelt a few of those areas. This shouldn't take very long. I really don't have all that much excess on here. So let's just remelt this really quick and then we'll move on. All right, I think that about does it. I'm gonna give these things a few more days. Remelting this wax sure brought out a lot more of the smell, so I'm gonna give it a few more days just to cure a little bit more before we test these things out. Well, here we are after a few more days. There's not much of a smell coming off these. I think that these things are good to test out. Let's take a little bit closer look and then I'm gonna attempt to put these on. Now right away, the first thing you'll probably notice, these things they're pretty stiff. They're not super flexible. It's definitely gonna take some breaking in, and even then, I'm not quite sure how flexible these are gonna get. We will find out. It's definitely a lot harder material than just the pants. That's for sure. You can scratch it, kind of make some marks in there in the wax, but it feels pretty solid. Another thing with these is this is supposed to be flame resistant. Let's try it. You can see it melts the wax, but...
Now, if I held the torch in one place for too long, I'm sure it would eventually burn, but for a short duration, it seems like it's protecting it.
I'm kind of liking these. It is time for me to put these things on, wear them around, maybe for a couple of days, hopefully begin the break-in process and see exactly how these things are gonna work out. I'm kind of excited to try this. I've never ever had any sort of pants or any material whatsoever like this, so it's gonna be a first for me. Don't worry, you are not gonna watch me change. I'm just gonna put these things on and then we'll test them out. Well, I got these things on. That was a little bit of a challenge. Right now, I'm just kind of taking a short walk, just trying to get them broken in. They're definitely stiff. There is a pretty strong breeze you can probably hear, and these things are very windproof. I feel zero breeze coming through, so I kind of dig that. So let's see what else we can do to get these things broken in.
I tried to come up with a couple of things where I knew I would be climbing around, maybe putting a little bit of wear and tear on them right away. Yep, they worked for cutting firewood.
There's definitely a certain ruggedness that these things have. While the fabric is still pretty stiff and not broken in, I don't feel like it's very restrictive. So far, I'm really liking these, and I really, really like the fact that they're windproof. Scratching on them like that really only just scratches the wax a little bit. Let's test it out with a little bit of water. This is gonna be cold if it leaks. And I do not feel it.
You can see how that water just beads up on the top. It's like a coat of wax on your car. This is pretty neat.
Works for piggyback rides too.
Yep.
They even work good for jumping on a trampoline. Who knew?
While the fabric is still really stiff, I don't feel restricted at all.
Yep, they even work good.
So the denim appears to perform about the same as the canvas. It's obviously not quite as heavy a material, but Time will tell as to the durability on this. I am not going to be fully testing these. These are for a friend of mine. He is going to be doing the testing, but from what I can tell, I think it's going to work out just fine. Just a little bit lighter material. I'd like to say thanks again to the Lone Woodsman for taking the time putting his video and the recipe together. I'll put a link below in the video description if you want to go check his out. Overall, I'm really happy with the way these are. I really like the feel of them. There's a certain ruggedness that you just don't get from a pair of jeans or even standard work pants. These just feel really durable, and I like that feel. Thanks a lot for watching this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed this project. Let me know what you thought of it in the comments. We'll see you next time. I hope we don't blow up. It'd be a bad day. Ooh, it stinks.